Hi, everyone. Miss Melinda here, your spiritual worker from MissMelinda's MetaphysicalServices.com, here to bring you our weekly live spirit chat. Another week has passed, and here we are on Sunday at 3 p.m. United Standard Time when our spirit chats always take place on Instagram as well as on YouTube. And on Instagram is where I give you a chance to submit your early bird questions. So at the top of the hour, I always attend to those early bird questions first. And that's what I will do right after I go over my personal announcements or my business announcements. Hi, thanks for being here. So, announcements. First of all, I'm on a sabbatical right now, which basically means that I'm taking some extra time to contemplate, to plan, to have introspection, to plan for the future, to assess goals. And I'm still working. I'm working part-time. So there's been a suspension of personal or individualized services. There's currently a wait list for those services, and they're being scheduled at very specific times. So I am still working. I am still answering emails. I am still doing readings. I am still doing group services until I begin a vacation where I will be traveling on the 26th of August is when that will begin. So if you need to or want to add your name to that wait list, you can go ahead and drop me a line via email at inquiries@missmelinda.com. And when I'm away, when I'm on vacation, I'm still going to try to do these live sessions. I don't think that I'm going to be able to do them on YouTube. I think I'm only going to be doing them on Instagram, but we'll see if it works out. I'm definitely going to try to do them. So I don't think that there will be any break in the live spirit chats on Instagram. Okay, so still 3 p.m. United States Central Standard Time on Sundays. All right. Let's see. Yesterday, I decided on and announced the class that I'm going to be teaching in September. And that class is called Sanctuary. And it's going to be going over energetic safeguarding from a spiritual perspective. So we're talking about spiritual techniques as well as energy techniques to protect ourselves, to ground ourselves, and to cleanse ourselves so that we have a safe foundation to work from for our future spiritual development, and even a safe foundation to work from for spiritual experimentation. Because I do feel that some amount of experimentation is normal and necessary when you want to develop your own techniques, when you want to develop your own practices, when you want to learn how spiritual connection really truly works for you, because this is all about being able to build your spiritual connection, your connection to spirit or source or the divine or to God, right? This is about the experience of the mystic. The mystic is one who seeks a direct experience with the divine. In order to do that, you need a safe platform to come from. You need to have some basic foundational tools and techniques in place, and you need to be able to experiment. So having those safeguards, those tools for safety in place is going to allow you the freedom and the security to further experiment and further develop your spiritual connection. That class is offered to my Patreons. At this time, it's only going to be offered to the Patreon community. In the month of September, it's going to be landing, I believe, the second to last week of September in the Patreon community. So in order to be a participant of that class, which is going to involve a live Q&A session, then you're going to want to sign up for the Patreon community before September 1st. In order to participate in a month's activities on Patreon, you need to be signed up before the 1st of that month. And that course is available at the Empress level and above. Okay, I think that's it for my personal announcements, but I did have something that I wanted to share with everybody. So I'm going to grab my book. I've been reading Magic and Mystery in Tibet. I've been reading Magic and Mystery in Tibet. It's an old book. It was written in the 30s, but it's been republished several times. And I've always had a connection to Buddhism. It's the way I studied it when I studied meditation, and there's so many different kinds of Buddhism, and I've been really getting interested in Tibetan mysticism and Tibetan magic, and I find a lot of correlation between that system of magic and mysticism and many other systems of magic and mysticism, and that's kind of what I'm all about as a universalist, is seeing those connections and really honoring the fact that all traditions, all religions have their own truth. They have their own path to God. They offer their own path to that direct experience. So seeing those connections is something really valuable to me that I really enjoy. And there was a prayer that I wanted to share, but I didn't mark the page, but it's not too far back from where I do have the book marked. So give me one moment. Hi, everyone. Hi, Joanna. Hi, Wendy. Hi, King Sir Gabriel. Nice to see you all here. Hi, JC Moji. Nice to see you here. Welcome, everyone. Okay, so I want to share this prayer. Salutation to the Buddha, in the language of the gods and in that of the Lus, in the language of the demons and in that of the men, in the languages which exist, I proclaim the doctrine. So, hi, Rebecca. Thanks for being here. So they're talking about, they're saluting the Buddha, the divine Buddha, the Buddha who has achieved enlightenment, so who has achieved nirvana and is no longer in the cycle of life and death, right? And the way that they're saluting the Buddha is in the language of the gods, in the language of the enlightened ones, in the language of the demons, in the language of the men, in all of the languages which exist, I proclaim the doctrine. And I think that there is some really valuable insight in this to be contemplated, which is when you're honoring a divine being, you're coming from a place that is timeless. You're coming from a place between the worlds. You're coming from a place without space, without time. And you're honoring the timelessness within existence. You're honoring the very essence of existence, in that it is timeless, that it is abstract, that all time exists at once. We couldn't possibly be aware of or connected to a divine being, such as the enlightened Buddha, for example, if we were... we can't possibly be connected to a being such as this without feeling also a sense of disconnection, and without being able to sit in that disconnection, without being able to sit within that space that exists between us, and to really honor that space, to honor the time that has passed. And when we are aware of that space of disconnection, we also become aware of our connection. What I like about this is that it's coming to the Buddha from a place of, it says all languages which exist, and it names off all beings which exist. So it's really stressing the connectedness of all of us, that we can't be alive as humans with the spirit on this earth without being connected to all other beings that have been and that are connected. It's honoring our connection to the spirit world, whether or not those spirits are malevolent or benevolent. It's honoring our connection to time immortal. It's honoring our connection to each other across time and space. It says, in the language of the demons and in the languages of men, in all languages that exist. So within this tiny prayer, it's honoring the connectedness between all of us. And it's really saying that we can't truly honor the divine without also honoring our connectedness between all of us, to all of us, and the connection that we have throughout space and time. We can't honor the divine without taking into consideration the way that time exists for us as a soul, as a spirit, without taking in consideration that there is time and place and space beyond us where the divine exists that we can't get to, we can't fully know, but that we can strive to and that we know exists. So I just think that it's really interesting to contemplate this as a means of prayer. That when we go to the divine, it would be wise to take into consideration that we are communicating with and attempting connection with a being that has existed throughout time immortal, throughout space, throughout cultures, throughout place, something that exists far beyond us, yet which also exists here with us. And when we do that, then we have to contemplate our own mortality and our own connection to our soul and the immortality of our soul, the connection that our soul has to other times and places. So I just think that that's something very beautiful and very interesting to contemplate. One more time, the book is Magic and Mystery in Tibet. For those of you who maybe haven't been here before, live spirit chats are a chance for you to take part in a group question session, a group Q&A session, or a group coaching session, and get your questions answered about your spiritual development, developing your spiritual path, developing your spiritual connection, developing your psychic abilities and your intuition, and all kinds of things related and in between, like working with your ancestors and your spirit guides, performing magic and divination, etc. I take early submission questions through Instagram, and I address those at the top of the hour. So I'm going to attend to the early bird questions, and then I will take your live questions after that. So you can submit them now and we'll kind of sit on them, or you can wait until it's time. Either way. Hi, Mellow Yellow. Thank you. Hi, Diary of a Mystic. Thank you. All right. Tenacious TJ, welcome. Nice to see you. So here are the questions that we have for this week. Let me have some tea. First question, I'm a beginner witch. What do you think about covens? I want to share ideas with others, but I'm leery. All right. So ask yourself, first of all, why you're leery. Is it because you're an introvert and you're just not that comfortable being around people in the first place? Are you coming from a place of fear? Are you assuming that a coven would be a strange place? Are you assuming that these people wouldn't have good intentions towards you? What's going on? Because if it's from a place of fear that's making you hesitant, then chances are that fear doesn't have validity. But if you're coming from a place of intuition and there's something about these people that's giving you a weird vibe, then you need to trust that intuition. But what I think about covens is that they can be a really great place to learn, and they can be a really amazing opportunity to learn together. I was in a coven for 15 years, and the way that those women and I grew together was amazing. Oh, sorry guys, quick battery issue. Give me 2 seconds here. Okay, technical difficulties averted. So I was in a coven for over 15 years, or for almost exactly 15 years. And the way that those women and I grew together was beautiful, and it was something that you can't accomplish on your own. I always talk about when you're wanting to develop your psychic abilities and your intuition, for example, it's highly, highly beneficial to be around other people who are either already psychically inclined or who are developing. And even just being around those people is going to increase your development incredibly. So having those kinds of experiences together is invaluable. Now, a coven is not necessarily about increasing or developing your psychic abilities and your intuition, but learning together in any setting is incredibly valuable. Practicing magic together, or even just being able to share ideas, or even just having a group that you can celebrate the turnings of the seasons with, or the wheel of the year, that you can honor those holidays with. That's something incredibly useful that will bring so much meaning and beauty to your life, to share those experiences. Of course, there are groups that can be toxic. There are situations that can get dicey, or whenever you enter into a relationship like this, a working or growing relationship with other people, then you also of course, are going to become involved in their lives. So you have to take all of that into consideration too. But with that, that's also another great learning experience, because you're going to learn how to work together. You're going to learn how to overcome personality challenges and dynamics. You're going to learn how to have a balanced working relationship when learning together and teaching together. Ideally, you would be somewhat egalitarian, so you would all have a chance to teach and all have a chance to learn, and take turns communicating and things of that nature. So overall, I think it's an excellent opportunity for growing and development, and I highly recommend it. Now, one thing to consider is that you may not be able to find a coven that believes exactly the way that you believe. And if it's the right group of people, they're not going to mind if your beliefs are not exactly the same, as long as you have enough core values in common. And it should ideally be a situation where you can kind of gain sustenance from those aspects of it that resonate with you, and kind of leave the rest respectfully on the table, right? So it should not be a situation where you must believe this doctrine exactly as we do, or you're not allowed here, or you must submit to us, or you must convert to our way of living. It should be something more open-minded, and a space for living and growing development together. Hi, Linda's daughter. Thanks for being here. So I recommend it. Second question, what are some of your favorite self-care routines? So because of the work that I do as a spiritual worker, as a spiritual teacher, I take a lot of time for self-care, because if I don't take a lot of time for self-care, then I can't care for others, and I can't do my job. My job takes a lot of concentration. It takes a lot of being in the flow, being connected, having a clear mind, being centered, right? Things of this nature. And it takes a lot of energy as well. So I need to take really good care of myself. So it's a huge part of my daily routine. There are so many things I do. My favorite things would be taking a spiritual bath. I love baths. I love the water. So spiritual baths are one of my favorite self-care routines. Swimming out in nature, another one of my very favorite self-care routines. I love nature. I love swimming. I like hiking and just being outside. Of course, we can't do that when it's 102 degrees in Texas, but all of the rest of the year we can. Those are some of my favorite self-care routines. So self-care doesn't have to be a big event. I used to think of it as a big event. I used to think, okay, well, I've got to meditate for 45 minutes, and then I've got to pray for 15 minutes, and then I've got to, do a spiritual bath and do a cleansing of my space and purify the whole area. And then I've got to attend to my altar, and I have to really, come at this from a place of extreme reverence. And now, because everything is so much a part of my daily routine, it's a much more balanced, free flow kind of action happening in and out of every day. So it's not uncommon for me to fluctuate between, like, I'm going to do the dishes and I'm going to meditate, and then I'm going to eat lunch, and then I'm going to pray. I'm going to water the garden, and then I'm going to cast some spells. It's a part of my whole life, but my home and my lifestyle is set up to support all of this. Some other of my favorite self-care practices are kind of unconventional. They're things that you may not think of as being self-care. So one thing that I've been doing recently is I used to do my Instagram posts in the morning, and that started to get to me. It started to be something that I didn't want to spend so much time on in the morning. So as part of my self-care, I try my best to commit to flowing, not forcing. So when something feels like it's forced to me, then I know that I'm not acting from a place of inspiration. I'm not acting from a place of spiritual connection. So then I have to make a change. So something that I've been doing is first thing in the morning, I read. When I sit down with my cup of coffee, I spend some time to read my books. And I don't look at my phone too much during that time. Instead, I'm doing my social media stuff in the evening. So just small things like that. And then another thing that I really like to do is plan my finances and do my budgeting. Because if you want to cultivate a healthy relationship with yourself, you need a healthy relationship with money, because we live in a material world and we need to be cared for materially and financially. If I didn't have a strong, stable foundation in my material life, then I wouldn't have the time or maybe the well-being to sit here and do this for you. So attending to our finances is a form of self-care. And when I pay my bills and create my budget and plan for my future finances, I'm caring for myself. And when I'm doing that, I feel good about it. So there's lots of different ways that I like to care for myself. Okay, next question. Can you cast spells without it being a certain moon phase or a certain day of the week? Absolutely, yes. I do it all the time. I do not necessarily always work within specific moon phases or specific days of the week. And I'll tell you what I do that works well for me is I follow my intuitive flow, and I follow the intuitive flow of how my week is going, how my weekly schedule is going. And when I feel that the time is right, then that is the day that I perform the magic, that I cast the spells. And more often than not, if I'm to sit down and look at the astrological tables or to look at the moon phases and analyze things during that time, then it aligns. So the most important thing is to really follow your intuition and to really follow your moods. Let's say it's the perfect day and it's the perfect moon phase and it's even the perfect planetary hour, but you feel like shit. All right, so you can't force yourself. You should not force yourself to perform magic during that time. It has to be a time when you're feeling inspired, when you're feeling connected, and when you have the energetic flow to perform the magic. Hi, fairest of them all. Thanks for being here. Next question. What is the next step if an Orisha appears in your dream? If an Orisha appears in your dream and you feel like it is a sign for you, then your next step is to get a reading with a reputable Baba or Santo, Baba or Santo. And I stress reputable because I recommend that you have a personal reference for the person that you go to for a reading of this nature. I recommend that they have somewhat of a reputation that precedes them, that you know people who have gone to them, that you know that they are people with integrity. And you would go to them and you would ask for a reading concerning your dream. If you feel like the dream is a sign for you to follow that path further, then you can ask them about that and they'll look into it in a reading. And because they are initiated into the tradition and a leader in that tradition, then they'll be able to further direct you, further guide you, and further teach you. I do also recommend then, if you feel that your dream is a sign for you, then you should start with some further research on the topic. You're not going to be able to get everything that you need from books. Nothing is going to match the level of teaching that you'll get from somebody in person, but you can start there and you can get some learning from books. There's a series. I cannot pronounce this name. I'm not going to try, but there's a series about the Orishas. And I guess I am going to try. It's by Awo Falokun Fatumbi. Awo Falokun Fatumbi. Okay, maybe you can kind of see this. And here. This is the name of the person who writes this series, and they're just tiny little booklets about all of the Orisha so that you can begin to familiarize yourself with the specific Orisha and the specific traditions surrounding that Orisha. So this is just the preliminary research that you can do on your own before seeking someone who is initiated and who is a leader in the tradition, like a Baba or a Santo, as I am recommending. I also have, I don't think that this guy writes a series though, but I'm not sure. I also have another little booklet by Baba Raul Canizares. And I'm sure I'm not pronouncing his name right, but Baba Raul Canizares. And he writes these booklets as well, but I don't know if he does a series about all of the Orishas. I have his one on Eshu Elegua Elegbara. So these are things that you can look into to further your information about the Orishas. Okay, and just for some foundational information as well, I also recommend this book, The Handbook of Yoruba Religious Concepts. The Handbook of Yoruba Religious Concepts, and that one is by Baba Ifa Karade. Baba Ifa Karade. So yeah, do some research, start reading, start researching, start familiarizing yourself, do the research offline. Do your own reading and research and seek out a very reputable Baba or Santo to do that reading for you. You're going to want to do that by asking people for references. Okay, and then someone is asking me, am I going to be with Brittany or should I leave her alone? All right, so in these live chats, I do not do personal readings and I do not do readings about specific situations such as relationships. These chats are not for readings, they're for Q&A. But what I can tell you about this is that you have hesitations about Brittany and you don't think that you're going to be with her. So ask yourself why you have those hesitations and why you don't think you're going to be with her. It sounds like it's probably already time for you to walk away, or you wouldn't already be thinking so you wouldn't already be thinking this way about the relationship. So something's already telling you that it's not going to work out. So go ahead and figure out what that is, why that is, and if you need to disconnect yourself now, walk away and save yourself some time and some heartache. Last question from the early bird submissions. What does it mean to feed a spell, and how and when do you do this? So feeding a spell, this is a term that's most often used for something like a mojo bag or a charm bag. This is a spell that is a living spell, a spell that continues to work and continues to be a living microorganism or to contain a living spirit that is going to keep working for you and keep having a connection for you and keep building upon the energy of your spell over time. A sweetening jar could also, or any kind of container spell could also be a good example of this. To feed it means to give it offerings or to continue to give it ingredients to strengthen it and heighten and extend the energy of it. An example of an offering for like a mojo bag, for an example, would be oils, spiritual oils. You would do this as often as you need to. You may want to set up a schedule for yourself. If this is a big, intense situation, you may want to work on it every day. So you may want to feed that bag or that jar, that bottle once a day in the morning while you state your intentions or say your prayers. Or if it's something that you know just needs to be continually working over time, then you may want to do it once a week. If it's something that you want to stay with you, that's a part of your permanent lifestyle, and that you know you're going to keep focusing on throughout time, then you can do this like on the new moon or the full moon, for example. You could also do it on, let's say you were working with the spirit of a saint for this particular goal or petition, then you could do it on their feast day or days that are sacred to them, like the day of the week that is sacred to them. So there's all kinds of conditions to take into consideration within this, but the main answer to your question is feeding a spell is giving it an offering or giving it additional ingredients to extend the energy of that spell and to keep it alive. One thing I want to mention is that some people get confused with spells or charms such as mojo bags, and they think that adding their DNA, like adding their blood or their hair or their nails to it, is a way of feeding it. Now that would be, if you were using that as a way of feeding it, then you would be feeding it yourself. You don't want to give yourself as an offering. The reason that we put our DNA in something like a mojo bag is to create a magical link between ourselves, an energetic link between ourselves and that bag. If you were to feed the bag, you would feed it with other things such as fresh herbs, or smoke, or your breath, or oils, things of this nature. Okay, now I'm ready to take the live questions. I'm going to take the YouTube questions first because they've been sitting here for a minute. Looks like there's just one. If your candle is burning slow and quiet, does that mean it's not needed? I don't think so. My opinion would be if your candle is burning slow and quiet, then that can also mean that spirit is very focused and that it's going to take consistent work over time, that the results may be slow, but that they could be consistent over time and that the energy and the results can steadily build upon themselves. A slow burning candle can also indicate some kind of resistance or that it's a difficult situation to work through. But typically those slow burning candles will build upon themselves. They'll build in energy and intensity over time. And then that will be your positive sign that, okay, the energy is building and now it's beginning to work and it's going to continue to kind of build momentum, right? Let's see what questions are here. I love your wood mask. Thank you. I had a dream that I was being thrown around, and my cousin, who I haven't spoke to in a while, was in the dream. We just reconnect. I woke up breathing heavy and saw a huge spider on my wall, but the closer I got to it, it was gone like a shadow of a spider. So I believe that your cousin in your dream was representing a unresolved issue that may exist within your family or may not exist within your family. Your cousin could be a symbol of something else, of a symbol of this unresolved issue that may or may not be with another person, may also just be within yourself, but is probably connected to your family because of the presence of your cousin. You woke up and you saw a spider. So you saw a shadow spider. I would ask yourself, what does a spider mean to you? It's much more relevant, much more meaningful, and much more significant to take into consideration what spiders mean to you. What do they symbolize in your life? What have been your experiences with spiders? What comes to your mind when you see one? What feelings did you have when you saw it? The universe is going to speak to you in the language that works for you, in your unique language. So when a message comes to you, even if it's a message for somebody else, it's still in your language. So it's important that you start to build your language for interpreting such things, right? So you start to build what your meaning is for a spider, for example. If you want to research spiders, there's a lot of information out there about the sacred spider or even the grandmother spider. There's a lot of information about spiders in indigenous American culture. There's a lot of folklore and a lot of history and spiritual traditions surrounding spiders. How long does a honey jar spell last? They vary. They can last a long time. They can also be a service or a working that takes a considerable amount of time to build energy. There's something that has a tendency to slowly and consistently build energy over time. But the thing that's nice about them is that once they do begin to build that energy, then it also lasts for a considerable amount of time. So it really assists with situations that need to be smoothed out or improved long term, so that you have a smoother path going forward that's going to offer you lasting results in your life and lasting change in your life. Now, there are a lot of variables to take into consideration. A honey jar can harden. If it hardens, that means that the situation is stuck and it's not working anymore. If the ingredients go bad inside a honey jar, you would tell by smelling it or by noticing that things are starting to change color. Things have gone wrong in the situation. So a lot of people believe that you have to keep the honey jar closed and that you don't open it up or you will affect the energy. I disagree with that. It is a living microorganism within itself. It's something that needs to be fed. It's something that needs to be continued to be worked with. So if I keep one for a long time, then I add energy to it. I check the contents. I open it up. I smell it. I look inside. I might add some fresh herbs. I might add some additional honey, etc. So there's a lot of things to take into consideration. I typically keep around a sweetening jar for my finances, for prosperity and abundance, things of this nature. on a regular basis, and I'll keep those for quite a long time. Like I could maybe keep one of those for 4 to 6 months. I think I usually keep them around 3 to 4 months, but you could keep it up to 6 months as long as it stays healthy. And also, a lot of people believe traditionally that you should not ever then open it up and dismantle it. Like when you dispose of it, you dispose of the whole thing. I actually do dismantle it and I leave the organic contents as an offering. And when I leave that offering, I say some prayers and I leave some additional offerings in order to extend the life of that service and extend the energy of that spell and to keep it working. Right. And then I go ahead and build a new one if I need it or want it. How do you feel about using a planchette or spirit message? So I'm guessing that you mean a spirit board. I believe the planchette is the device that is used to move around the spirit board, right? I feel good about using spirit boards. There's all kinds of spirit boards out there. They're not just Ouija boards. There's all kinds of different tools that can be used for communicating with spirits and gaining spirit messages. I feel that I'm just got my eye on a candle that has suddenly heated up over here. I believe that if you're going to attempt things of this nature, then you need to have some basic tools under your belt for protection and for cleansings. You need to know what you're doing, and you need to be setting an intention for what kind of spirit you want to be communicating with or receiving messages for, and set an intention that it's a benevolent spirit, that you only want to communicate with beings of love and light, for instance. So there are things of this nature to keep in consideration, but when you have the tools under your belt, when you have the right knowledge, and when you are setting your intentions and strong in what you do, then it can be an excellent way to communicate and gain spirit messages. How often should you have a general reading done? Well, if it's a general reading and it's not for specific questions, then the time frame isn't as important as it would be if you were asking about a specific situation over and over again. For a general reading, some people like to get those once a week. But I would say, every couple of months should suffice. I don't think you would need one more than once a month. But if things have changed drastically in your life within a week or two, then it may be time for a new one. So it also just really depends on what's going on with you and what's going on in your life. If you're in a period of time where you're going through a lot of transitions or you need to make a lot of big decisions, then maybe it's a good time to get one every week. And then when things are slow and steady again, then you could settle back down to every other month or so. It just depends on how things are going for you. Linda's daughter says, "Oh my God, yes, this is true. We have unresolved issues in the family." Yeah. So spiders can represent wisdom, and that can be an excellent sign for you in using your wisdom to address those unresolved issues. How did you become good at reading tarot and oracle? What did you routinely do for practice? Meditation, focusing on my intuition. A lot of people want to know what books to read and how to go about the book studies. And I always say those things to become good and adept at those things. I also strongly recommend meditating on a card each day. Just pulling one card, meditating on that card. What do you feel when you look at it? What do the symbolic images tell you? How does it apply to your life at this time? Get a little journal, write down the moon phase, the time of day that you're doing this, write down what you were feeling when you pulled the card, and then write down the card and your basic impressions from the card. And if you can, then don't even look up the definition. Just focus on you tuning in with the cards, and you developing your intuition, and you developing your mental and spiritual clarity. That is the most important aspect of becoming good at any kind of readings or any kind of divination. Thank you, Linda. Linda says, I feel connected to you. You're very on point with spirit. I believe in what you teach us. Thank you, Linda. You're welcome. Someone's asking, what is a good cleansing spell to bring good luck? So I wouldn't necessarily say that a cleansing spell is the same thing as a spell to bring good luck. I have to keep an eye on a candle that has suddenly heated up quite a bit. So I'm just moving it from my altar to over here on the table where I can see better until the chat is over. Okay, so I wouldn't necessarily say that a cleansing spell is the same thing as a spell to bring good luck. A cleansing spell is when you need to remove unwanted energies or anything that could be holding you back. And then a spell to bring in good luck would be like part 2. So first you remove the energy, and then you do something to draw in the energies, the blessings, or the good luck that you are seeking. And there's all kinds of ways to do that. And what I like to do is not necessarily a spell, but a cleansing of my space, of myself and my home. So I recommend a spiritual cleansing of your home. First, you could use something like diluted vinegar to wipe down your whole home after do your normal cleaning. Your house should be clean to start. In fact, it should be very clean to start. So you could even do something like a spring cleaning. Then wipe down your whole home with like diluted vinegar. I'm just throwing out some ingredients that are easy to obtain. Vinegar is energetically cleansing. After you clean with that, let it totally dry, and then clean with something like diluted Florida water. And so when you're cleaning with the vinegar, you're focusing on getting rid of any unwanted or negative energies. And then when you're cleaning with the Florida water, you're focusing on drawing in the blessings and the good luck that you're seeking. Why do we leave offerings? We leave offerings to show our gratitude. We leave offerings as a gift of gratitude, of respect, of devotion, of honor. It's like when you give your friend a present, it's an indication that we're in a reciprocal relationship, that we're not just taking and that we're not just expecting things, that we're also giving. It's also, in certain contexts, it can be energy that the spirits actually feed on, that the spirits actually use for their personal energy or for their personal evolution. So there's lots of reasons that we leave offerings, and in lots of different contexts. Best way to burn a petition safely or tool, a bowl. Yeah, if you want to use a bowl, it needs to be a really sturdy, thick ceramic bowl. And you're going to also want to have something underneath it, like an additional plate or a trivet, for example, a metal trivet. And if you burn it inside, then have it next to an open window. I recommend burning it outside and then getting rid of the ashes, disposing of the ashes as well, which you can do outside by blowing them to the wind or by leaving them at a crossroads or burying them in your garden, depending upon what the petition is for, right? Yeah, that's a safe way to burn a petition. Metal or thick ceramic? That's a big question, Linda. Linda's asking, what kind of offering should we leave on our altar? It depends on so many variables. What you're doing, why you're leaving the offer, what spirit you're leaving it to, or who you're leaving it to. You could be leaving it to the divine. You could be leaving it to an ancestor. You could be leaving it to the saints. And it really depends on so many different factors. I do have a video up on YouTube about basic offerings, and you can check that out. But this is too big of a topic to address right now because we're nearing the end of the video, and also it's just a really big topic. It depends on so many variables. Let me address a couple of other YouTube things, and then we're going to log off for the day, and I'm going to take care of this candle. I'm sorry that you're feeling confused. There's someone on YouTube saying that they're feeling confused, saying that they need to get spirit back. You can definitely do it. Lots of people lose their path and then come back to it. I haven't always been on a spiritual path consistently throughout my whole life. There have been lots of times where I've lost track and then come back to it later. You know, it's never too late. You can definitely get back on your spiritual path. The first thing that I recommend is meditation and prayer. Check out some of my other YouTube videos, and you'll probably find some pieces of inspiration and some pieces of info in there that can help you start to get back on track and help you start to rebuild your spiritual connection. But, you know, you can do it in a pretty short amount of time as soon as you start trying too. So don't feel like just because you've been disconnected or you lost track that, you know, it's hopeless now. It's not. It's not. It's relatively easy to get back on your path. You just set that intention. You're welcome, Linda. Linda's daughter. I'm sorry. I do that all the time. I know your name is Linda's daughter, and then I'll just read like the first part of it. So I have lots of favorite cleansing baths. My favorite one is probably just limes and sea salt. You just squeeze a bunch of fresh limes into your bath water and a little bit of sea salt. And I like to do that one hot, even though a lot of spiritual baths are recommended to do room temperature. And that one is good for clearing away stagnancies and unwanted energies when things have been difficult or when you've been going through heavy emotional times, when you've been having a lot of challenges or a discord. But it's not a particularly bitter bath, so it can also be used for bringing in blessings and assisting you with that kind of fresh start, that revived renewal that you're looking for in your life. Whereas with a lot of other baths, if you do something that's really bitter or really strong, then you would want to follow it up with a sweet bath to then draw in your blessings. The lime bath with the salt, in my opinion, can be used for both. Okay, y'all, thanks so much for being here today. Thank you for all of your excellent questions. Thank you for choosing to spend your time with me. I really appreciate it. I love having you here. I love having these chats every week, and I always look forward to it. Thanks so much, and have a wonderful Sunday evening. Stay blessed. Thanks, everyone. I appreciate you. Have a great Sunday. Stay blessed.